Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Volturian, Red Dragon, out May 20th on Scarlet Records. This album has 10 tracks, 38 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are an Italian symphonic metal band. As far as the design goes, there are positives, there are negatives. The negatives are the opening song and the closing song. You can call them intro, you can call them outro, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have the necessary impact that you need out of those two songs in order for the album to feel overall a little bit more balanced, a little bit more connected. If you're gonna have a song starting off the record in the same feel, in the same vibe as they currently do on this record, you want that track to kind of blend in with the song that comes after, so there's a sense of continuity, there's a sense of interrupted flow that moves you from that first song into the next song. Same at the end of the record. You want a sense of finality, you want a sense of closure, you want a sense of seeing the curtains coming down, and right now there's a complete disconnect from these two tracks towards the rest of the album. They don't add value, they don't make the record feel better, they don't give more fluidity to the album itself. Now, within the walls of those two songs, this is where the good stuff resides, because the album itself, within those two songs, feels very well structured. It has great mobility, great flow. The songs really move well, not necessarily needing one in order to make the other one better, but having the right fluidity makes the overall album more engaging, more dynamic, more interesting. Being 38 minutes in length doesn't hurt either. It doesn't overstretch the album, it doesn't dilute the experience, and it gives you a quick feel of what the record is all about, allowing to get what you want but still feel like you could go for seconds and then come back again and listen to the record time and time and time and time again. So from that design, from that perspective, the interior walls of this album are really well put together. Is the perimeter that could have used a little bit of help. As far as the soundscape is concerned, you see the move from the debut album into this album. They're definitely going more towards the pop synth driven sound. It's clear as day. The synthesizers taking control of this record from the first all the way to the last song. The problem with that is that they overshadow everything. They overshadow the drums, they overshadow the bass, they overshadow the guitars. The only element that they are able to overshadow is the vocals. The vocals are phenomenal, they're standing on top of everything else, and they're definitely guiding the listener through the entire experience of going from the first all the way to the last song. But as far as the soundscape is concerned, it feels really popish, it feels really diluted. It lacks a little bit of substance, it lacks a little bit of texture, it definitely lacks a little bit of heaviness. It's very hard to get any of those elements when the synthesizers are just overpowering everything. They're on every single song, they're driving the experience, they are the element that your ears will connect with on every single track, and it becomes really hard to tell the forest from the trees. The bass at times pops a little bit into the forefront and you're able to grasp what it's doing, you're able to feel the heaviness, the grooviness, how much substance is giving to these songs, but it's not enough overall to really change your perspective of the album. When you get to the last track, you're going to look back and you're going to feel like you're listening to a pop album more so than a metal record. There's very little metal on this album because of how the synths are created within the overall context of the soundscape. I wanted the guitars to be a little bit more in the forefront. I don't mind the synths, I just don't want them to have this sort of role, consistent role from the first all the way to the last track. I want them to be more as waves, coming in, coming out, maybe one song more, maybe one song less, even within songs themselves. Allow them to be a little bit more mobile, allow them to be a little bit more dynamic, and give the guitars a little bit of a bigger role in terms of the driving experience, in terms of the energy, the sound, the heaviness, the power. In this album, they feel subjugated to a secondary role. The drums perhaps even to a third role, because you don't feel any strength, any power coming from them at all. It's a very thin sounding album. The synths really thin out the overall soundscape on this record, and I think they have elements to make the sound feel a little bit more powerful and still keep that synth sound present, but not the way they did it on this record. I would also like to see them going towards more of a dark turn. They have all the right attributes musically and vocally to make some songs feel a little bit more melancholic, feel a little bit more darker, not being afraid to go into that dark corner. That would also create a gap or a ripple effect within the overall record that would make the songs feel different from one another, and it would create a reset perhaps in the middle of the album that would break that monotony that exists within the pop synth driven sound that the album has. They never really went there. They got close on a few songs, on a few moments. There are a few tracks where you feel like they're at the door and they're ready to open that door, but the door never really opens. And I would like to see them take chances going into the darker side of the band, because this album is definitely on the more brighter side of what they can offer. As far as the vocals are concerned, Federica is phenomenal. If there's one thing that stands out outside of the synths, that stands out as far as quality is concerned, is definitely her vocal performance. She is the only element on this record that stands on top of Mount Olympus. Everything else is subjugated towards her. She controls the record, she controls the movement, she controls the mood. A lot of the energy of these tracks, the mood, the atmosphere, the vibe, where the songs are going in terms of an emotional roller coaster, all of that really comes from her vocal delivery and her vocal performance. She is a phenomenal singer, and it doesn't matter what sound you put on a record. When you have a singer like that, you're always going to get the best out of her. She's phenomenal from start to finish. All around, this is a record that follows the pattern of other bands, either symphonic or power metal bands, that are going towards more a pop synth driven sound. I see this quite a bit these days, and I'm not necessarily sure exactly where this is going to end, because eventually the more synths you add and the more you allow them to take control of the overall sound, the less metal you're going to have on your record. The more diluted the experience is going to be, the more pop the album is going to be. So at a certain point in time, you have to make a decision. Are we going to become a pop rock band, or are we going to remain a metal band? This album is at that cusp. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Stay, which in my opinion is actually the first song outside of the opening track. This is the real first track of the album, and I love the little bit of the guitar bite that this song has. Still very synth and vocally driven song all around. The vocals are at the top of the experience as far as the track is concerned, but the quality that voice has, the quality that the tone of that delivery has, really allows the track to feel overall a little bit more connected, even though it's still very dynamic. The chorus is super melodic and super hooky. I love that vocal bridge, that stripped down vocal bridge that then leads into the guitar solo. The guitar solo is not over explosive, but nothing guitar wise on this album is overly explosive. So it kind of fits the mood of the rest of the track, and it kind of fits the mood of the rest of the album. The song then closes as strong as it did when it started. It goes almost full circle. I love the feel of this track. I love how it sounds. I love how it's put together. It's one of the few songs that has a little bit more texture to it, and it's not just as direct. It's not just as simple. Next, you have Burn It Up. Definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite song outside of the singles. The bass on this track really pops, and it helps the song tremendously, because you don't feel the strength from the drums, and you don't really feel a lot of strength coming out of the guitars. It morphs. You do get more strength from the drums and guitars as the song progresses, but when the song starts out, it's pretty much bass, vocals, and synths. So the bass really adds heaviness. It really adds a sense of groove, a sense of grounding the track, bringing the mood down and allowing the vocals to feel perhaps a little bit more melancholic, and giving a sense of progression and a sense of growth to the overall song, because this is a track that gains more volume as you take further steps into it. I love this sense of progression. I love this sense of movement that this track offers. Last but not least, we have Freeze. This is a track that has big volume all around. You have synths, drums, guitars, bass, vocals. Everything is very consistent from beginning all the way to the end, allowing that volume to stay also very consistent from beginning all the way to the end. A track that stays more uniform, a track that's not as dynamic, that stays more controlled, and it still has a phenomenal chorus, very melodic, both musically and vocally, that allows the song to kind of break out of that monotony, break out of that linear motion that you see, and that it appears in front of you from the get-go all the way to the last note. I love that chorus. This song really becomes interesting because of the way the chorus comes across, and then that volume, that consistent volume that you feel, that you hear from start to finish. This is it, Volturian with Red Dragon out May 20th on Scarlet Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.